Hello everybody, this is Karma Killed the Cat, and welcome to your third C++ tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll be going over if statements. So, in an if statement, you give it a condition, and then if that condition is true, it will run a certain block of code, and if that condition is false, it will run a different block of code. So, that may seem confusing now, but I'll give you an example, and then it should be a bit clearer. So let's just say we're making a game and we want to output something if the player's health reaches 0. It's a cheesy example, but it works. So we'll do int health equals 100 from the last tutorial. And now for the if statement, we do if space open parentheses, and we'll do if health, then two equal signs. The two equal signs is called the logical equals, and the single equal sign is called the assignment equals. You use the assignment equals when you're assigning a value to a variable, and you use the logical equals when you're comparing two values. So the value of health, and we'll compare that to 0. So what we're saying here is if health equals 0, then we run the code in these curly brackets. Notice the curly brackets are the same as the ones in the main function. We'll get to what the curly brackets really mean soon. So if health equals 0, then we'll do count you died and mine. So what we're saying here is if health equals 0, then run this code. So now say you want, oh, actually I should run this to show you. So we'll run this, and you see nothing's outputted even though we're telling it to output something here. That's because health is not equal to 0, so it won't output anything. So now let's try doing this, else, and then in curly brackets, we'll just output you are still alive. And now let's try running this. So what we're saying here is if health equals 0, output you died, otherwise output you are still alive. So run this, and it'll say you are still alive. But if we change the health to 0, it'll say you died. So the next part of an if statement is the else if block. So to do that, we do else space if, and then in parentheses we write our next condition. So we'll do if else if health, didn't spell that right, is equal to 50, then we'll output your health is at 50%. So now what we're saying is if health equals 0, output you died. Or, if health is equal to 50, output your health is at 50%. Otherwise, output you are still alive. So we'll run this, and health is still equal to 0, so it'll output you died. And it'll say you are still alive if the health is 100. But now we change health to 50, and your health is at 50%. So the next thing you need to know about if statements are the comparison operators. So you already know one, the logical equals, and what the logical equals does is it takes two values and it compares them, just like all the other comparison operators, and if the values are equal to each other, it returns true. So, and if the values are not equal to each other, it returns false. So you see here with our example, health is equal to 50, so it takes health and 0 and compares them, and health and 0 are not equal, so it returns false and skips over this line of code. In the else if statement, we have health equals 50, and it compares health and 50, and they are the same, so it returns true and runs this line of code. So now the next one we're going to learn is not equals. So in C++, the exclamation point means not, and what not equals does is the exact opposite of what equals does. It takes the two values, compares them, and if they're equal to each other, it returns false, and if they're not equal to each other, it returns true. So health is not equal to 0 here, So it'll run this. So if we run this, it'll say you died because health is not equal to 0. And of course, if we set health to 0, it will run the else statement because health is equal to 0, so this returns false. Health is not equal to 50, so this returns false. So by default, it just goes to this one. So the next one we're going to learn about are the less than and greater than comparison operators. So what this is saying, if you've done, well, you've probably done less than and greater than in math, it's pretty much the exact same. So this is saying if health is less than 50, so we'll do 25, and we'll change this back to equal 0. So now if health is less than 50, it'll say your health is at 50%. The example's kind of falling apart here, but there's really no need to change the text. So health is less than 50, and you may have guessed there is also a greater than sign. So now we'll just do 75. And now health is greater than 50, so that returns true and runs this line of code. So similarly, there's also greater than or equals to and less than or equals to. So this just adds the number that you're comparing it to. So 50, it's still less than or equal to 50. Those are pretty similar. That's all the comparison operators in C++. So the next operators we have to deal with are the logical operators. So these are and, or, and not. And we've already somewhat gone over not, but this is somewhat different. So these are kind of self-explanatory. So we'll do if health equals 0, and we'll do, the example's already falling apart, so screw it. Health 2 equals 10. So, by the way, this is another way to declare variables. So int health 2 equals 10. So now what we're saying here is if health equals 0 and health 2 equals 10. So both of these conditions have to be true for it to run this line of code. And both the conditions are true or not. Oh, no, they're not true. So now both the conditions are true, so it runs this line of code. But say we change just one of them, so we'll change health 2 to 0 too. Now it will go to the else if statement because health is still less than 50. So the next one is the OR operator, logical OR operator. And what this is saying is if health is equal to 0 or health 2 is equal to 10, so you can see only one of these is true, but it still outputs this. Either one can be true. And change this to 10 and this to 10 as well. And it'll still go through this block because this statement is true. But if both of them are false, the statement will not be run. So the last one is the not, and not health. So you know what, let's just, so that what we're doing here is pretty much the same as saying if health is not equal to 0, but you can also do it this way. So if not health equals 0, it's just another way again of saying if health is not equal to 0, but you died. So that's all the logical and comparison operators. But just another thing I want to show you, if we were using a bool variable to check for the if statement, so bool, we'll just call it check equals false, false, can't type, false. Then instead of doing if check, instead of having to do if check equals true or if check equals false, we can just do if not check, then run the code. saying not in front of a Boolean variable is the same as saying if it's equal to false. So if we get rid of the equal sign, it won't run until we change it to true. So there we go. And that's about all for if statements. So play around with these. You may not understand them yet, but play around with these, come up with your own examples, and you will get them eventually. If something's really confusing you, rewatch the tutorial, or you can just look it up on Google, and there should be a forum that answers your question. But I really do recommend at this point that you do play around with code, what you know now, before you go on to the next tutorial. So the next tutorial, I think, will be about the string library. So see you in the next tutorial.